Hello,
welcome back.
Cartoon Network geeks. Sorry, I'm doing the intro.
This is a new series we're going to call Chatroom Network.
Creative and original.
Yes, I'm corny as fuck and I don't care. So, being a channel of, of a certain name about, talking about Cartoon Network is sort of what we want to do. So, we're going to talk about some old Cartoon Network shows that we grew up with.
Yeah, specifically from like the late 90s into like the early 2010s, I would say.
That's one of the things that I always find hilarious when people always say only 90s kids would understand this when reruns exist.
Yeah, right? And I mean, like, I don't know. I grew up with a lot of 90s stuff, even though I was born in, 1999, but whatever.
Yeah, see, the thing with me is that most of the Cartoon Network stuff, and it was 90s stuff as well, which was interesting to me, was mostly when I would constantly stay at my grandpa's house because us personally, we didn't have cable. So, since I basically had nothing to do over there, I'd just be like, shiny TV. And I would just watch, whatever was on. And that also intertwined with Boomerang, but we'll get to that.
I mean, Boomerang is part of Cartoon Network, so.
Yeah. Boomerang is taken from a bunch of channels. It's made to be old school because it's coming back like a boomerang. Kill me. Anyway,
So, all right, let's start with, well, what do you think is the best old, and I mean old, in the era that we described, Cartoon Network show?
honestly, a show that I really enjoyed watching from that era was Dexter's Lab. And as really one of the things it was one of those things that I really enjoyed as a kid. But then when I watched it as an adult, I'm just like, this is really fucking weird. But it was still funny.
Yeah, I think some of the best Cartoon Network shows don't really have an explanation for them. They just are.
Actually,
but that's what makes them good.
Actually, never fucking mind. Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah, Powerpuff Girls was good.
That was good. I remember as a kid, being at my grandpa's house, who's very old school. Being the kid that's always just like, oh, I'm not gonna watch a girly cartoon. I wasn't really that kid, is the thing. So if it was TV, I was cool with it. That's one of the things that I always hear from I used to hear this shit from friends in grade school who would always be like, oh, I used to not want to get into. I knew a lot of bronies, by the way. Not get into My Little Pony because it was for girls. It's just that's a pretty weird reason.
Yeah, for me growing up, I don't know. I don't think any of the shows I watched were necessarily gendered. I watched a lot of Cartoon Network with my dad, specifically after school and in the mornings before school. Over the summer, Camp Lazlo was our show. That and Total Drama.
Oh, yeah, I remember that show. It was...
What, Camp Lazlo or Total Drama?
I don't know what the fuck you're talking about with Camp Lazlo, but...
I mean, okay.
I'm just kidding. I know of the show, but I've never watched
Some
it.
Some people think that Camp Lazlo was trash. I personally didn't think so, but I mean, if you haven't seen it, then I can't debate it with you.
I've heard of it. I can't really form an opinion on it. It's one of those shows where I'm just like, huh? As opposed to Dexter's Lab, when I referenced that, it was more of a Dennis the Menace sort of approach, but in the scientific sense, where you have this annoying sister who disrupts your experiments all the time, but it's a concept. It's early Jimmy Neutron.
Yeah, I can see that. Or I don't know, I feel kind of Fairly Odd Parents plays over that sort of theme as well, but in a more magical way as opposed to science, and instead of the sister, it's the babysitter. Yeah. But that's Nickelodeon. We don't talk about that here because this is Cartoon Network geeks, not Nickelodeon geeks.
I mean, in our next podcast, we're probably going to be talking about all cartoons, but we wanted to keep this a little more streamlined because CNG isn't here and we don't want to like have that podcast and have him be like, oh, you guys talked about it already? All right.
Yeah. We're going to make more podcasts that are a lot more inclusive of all of our members. We were going to have one with CNG right now, but they got busy.
I mean, why do you think I made the video? Like,
oh yeah, that's true.
like,
I forgot about
I'm
that.
I'm front with you. Like, despite my tone and everything, like, I'm mostly serious about him being really busy. But regardless, we want to talk about like how Cartoon Network sort of, left mark on the, the fans of the network in general and the cartoons that came with it. And I think it'd be also nice to talk about how that nostalgia, how that expectation can sort of conflict with the modern cartoons that we get from them these days.
Right, I feel like a lot of the cartoons that are on Cartoon Network right now, just like, they're not memorable. I mean, first of all of their animation styles are almost exactly the same, that Cal Arts style, but like...
I'm sorry.
I'm just being honest.
I'm sorry.
But
I really like how you called it Cal Arts
like,
style.
they're just, I don't know. They're okay. Like, I don't like that they keep trying to reboot shows in like a new modern sort of way. That it doesn't work. Like Teen Titans Go, sort of. I don't know. There were a couple episodes that I was like, okay, but for the most part, I'm like, this is just really annoying. And like now that they're doing Thundercats Roar or whatever, that's also very annoying.
Let's get back to that later. Like let's go back to like, all right, shocker, I haven't watched that much Johnny Bravo. I've watched a few episodes here and there, but like, it was like his character was in general pretty funny just because
he was like the original fuckboy.
Well, yeah, that was his character. He was a parody of Elvis, who was the first fuckboy.
Really? I didn't know that he was like meant to be Elvis's parody, but that's cool.
He says "Ho, mama."
Well, I didn't know. I'm sorry.
He says "Ho, mama."
I mean, I figured that was kind of what they were going for, but like I didn't know he was like a. Anyway.
But it's just a lot of the, and this is where we get into the whole animation aspect of it as well. The thing that charmed us about these shows, and still do, was not really the animation style for most of it.
No, I think it definitely focused a lot on like the plot and the comedy, as opposed to
that's one
super
of the things
bright,
that
colorful, loud noises.
I feel that a lot of animators sometimes don't really understand is that ultimately animation is not exactly an art form. It's a storytelling form. And
combined with art.
Yes, and it uses art to portray it. Like there are several different. It's motion. It's portraying motion. When you see most, like a movie like Pacific Rim, people call it a live action film, but there's more animation than that than there are actors. And the fact that that's true does not make it an animated film because it's mostly about the storytelling. That's why everything's made to look realistic, because it's supposed to immerse you. And that's one of the things that a lot of people liked about the old Cartoon Network shows, because they were engaging. Like, you could debate that a lot of them beforehand were just color and noise as well, but a lot of the shows were really clever and they were funny. And there were things that you could watch with your kids.
Yeah, I liked that a lot of the shows kind of like, they, in a way, you could, as an adult, still enjoy them. And then the messages that they portrayed in each episode is something that, like, you can learn from, as opposed to, like, what was it, the new Powerpuff Girls with the twerking and stuff? I'm like, it's not something you should teach your child, but okay.
Even still, even if it wasn't twerking, and it was just like clearly Gen Z pandering. Even if it was just that, that's a terrible way to make a show. One of the things that people admire about, older cartoons is that if you can sit down and watch with your kids, that shows like the ability to write for whatever audience. And that's something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely something that every cartoon should shoot for.
One of the things that Have you seen the Killing Joke Batman movie?
I don't believe so.
All right. Well, I don't think you have to for me to describe what. So they had to keep it like a PG-13 rating. These robbers, they were like gangsters. They were like hard-boiled. They were carefree. They were about killing people. They literally shot at Batgirl the minute she came up next to him. And when she lands on top of their truck, one of the drivers says, "Freaking A."
Okay.
And I can make this really short. It was already an adult story. All they did to dumb it down was censor cursing by replacing it with fake cursing, which really takes you out of it, especially if you're of a certain age.
But I mean, the story's still enjoyable for adults. They just had to make sure that the cursing was suitable for children.
I mean, here's basically the point of view that I'm trying to, because like you don't have to incorporate cursing as a thing. It was an entirely like rewritten script. Like it's not the comic word for word. It's a cinematic interpretation to the comics.
It's
Yes.
cinematic interpretation.
I personally didn't like the film too much, but maybe I'm a little biased, but it just took you out of the reason it took me out of the film is because writing them to say, there was also a couple other lines that are just like, "Oh, I'm freaking the F out."
Okay, that's a little extreme then. At that point, they shouldn't have even
I
said a curse word at all.
Well, what baffles me is nobody says freaking A or freaking the F out when they're scared. It's just like,
I mean, maybe if you're a preschool
yeah, but these
teacher.
fuckers aren't preschool teachers. That's what took me out of it. I'm just like, whoa, is it take your kid to work day or something?
Well, that's an example then of making a movie that's supposed to be for adults and children.
Yeah,
doing it badly.
That's what I was originally. Oh my god, I'm gonna edit so much of this out. But that's essentially what I was trying to go for, like, because you don't have to write curse words into films to make them adult-like.
Right. Making something an adult film would be like adding themes that are too complex for children.
Like the whole Powerpuff Girls thing. Like, I was an accident too.
That was funny.
Yeah, it was funny.
That was funny because, like, children don't understand it, but if you're an adult watching with your kid, you're like, holy fuck.
Yeah, that's a good example, is what I'm trying to say. Or like that episode with SpongeBob where he's looking at a sea sponge through a TV. And as a kid, you don't get that because you probably don't know what a sea sponge is, and you hopefully don't know what pornography is.
Yeah, but I mean, SpongeBob wasn't on Cartoon Network.
You know what? We were...
So let's get back into more of, like, the really good Cartoon Network shows and what they did that made them so good.
Yeah. If we want to move further along, what was a show that was a little bit after that era? Well, actually, was the Smurfs on Cartoon Network?
I believe the Smurfs was just on Boomerang.
But where did it originate?
Oh, no.
I thought
It was really old.
I'm looking this up.
But see, like,
Where the fuck?
for stuff like the Smurfs, like, the animation isn't... I know that we said, like, the animation is bad, but the storyline and the comedy make up for it. But, like, for its time, the animation wasn't that bad. Just, computer stuff was yet to be discovered.
Well, here's what I meant by... Well, see, the thing about it is, if you look at an animation style like Smurfs, there's nothing, like, extraordinary about it.
True.
But to be fair, there are a lot of shows that did have a very interesting take on the art style that they were approaching. But you have to admit, a lot of the shows produced, like Powerpuff Girls, a lot of the art style choices were purposely conservative because all they were doing was telling a story. That's something that a lot of shows later on don't really show in terms of like being able to tell a story. Like everybody loves 30 FPS now for some reason, even though they can't learn how to animate in it. But ultimately...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I feel like I feel like the difference between like the animation now versus animation then is like the animation now is so cookie cutter, like it's just easy.
Hmm.
You know, like you have the one facial expression and you just keep doing it over and over. It's the same reaction dot png or not png. IMG probably. What the fuck is PNG?
I don't remember.
Reaction GIF dot GIF. But back then, animation didn't it wasn't animated to get finished in a week and then have it published, you know? It still had like that time and dedication to it. Yeah, there were like a few shortcuts, but it's definitely not as bad as it is now.
Most of it was hand drawn as well. So
There's nothing against computer animation. It's just that like if you're gonna computer animate, do it the right way. Like don't just copy and paste. You know what I mean?
yeah. See, when everybody always talks about shows like what do you think was the best animated cartoon in that era?
Oh God, I have to think about this.
Here, I'm gonna look up a list because I don't want to look like an idiot.
I'm gonna do that too, so I have something in front of me.
Well, I need...
I'm just gonna look up like the list of good versus bad shows that we have on the drive and just go off of that.
Courage and the Cowardly Dog. That's a
Oh, Courage the Cowardly Dog was so good.
I really liked the art style for it. It used to terrify me as a kid.
And like some people would argue that it was too scary for children, but like to me, I wasn't scared as a kid. I really liked it.
I was a little bitch boy when it came to ugly art styles like Ed, Ed and Eddie. That's another one. It scared the fuck out of me because
I thought Ed and Eddie was pretty good.
No, I do not deny that it was good, but as a kid, I really hated their facial expressions because they scared me.
Can we talk about What's New Scooby-Doo, or rather any of the Scooby-Doos?
No.
What do you mean no?
Because they're bad.
Scooby-Doo is great.
Okay, I'm just...
What's New Scooby-Doo was the best version of Scooby-Doo. I will fight anyone on that.
I'm just fucking with you.
Fight me in the comments.
Yeah, sure, the comments. But,
That's because What's New Scooby-Doo had a pop-punk theme song, and that was its redeeming factor.
I did really enjoy, though, the Animaniacs. That was another childhood gem of mine. And fun fact, that was actually one of the first and only specifically key animated source animation studios in America. Because you know how animation studios in America will outsource their storyboards to animators in Germany, Korea, Japan. This studio actually did their own key animation by themselves, and in the classic Warner Bros. Style. Like, they were licensed by Warner Bros., and that's about it. But they didn't last very long, unfortunately, and eventually went bankrupt because our economy at the time didn't really support full-fledged animation studios. But it was...
I think another... Sorry, go ahead.
No.
I think another really well-animated show was Flapjack.
Yeah, it definitely had a very unique style to it. And, like, objectively, like, the animation was good. I'm not too big a fan of the art style, though.
I thought it was pretty good. And I like shows that kind of, like, have those weird moments where it's not that art style. You know, they, like, flip it to something else.
Yeah,
shows like that are always pretty good.
I want to talk about that involving the modern era we have upon us. So, one of the things that all of these shows follow is the 24 frames per second format. And that was something that Don Bluth and a lot of the early animators of the 30s and the 50s all picked up from as like a principle of hand-drawn to inked animation. I used to own the book, but it's really compelling stuff. But now that people are trying to work with 30 and 60 frame per second animation, which is fucking insane. Why would you do that? But to be fair, they're tweening, so I don't have as much respect for it. But regardless, people trying to follow this new format, which doesn't really have a defined principle. People trying to animate especially in 60, because there's no real technique without a bunch of copying and pasting. And that's one of the things, and especially tweening. But a lot of these cartoons from this era were just people that, they could draw because they knew the fundamentals, they knew what they were doing, they knew what kind of style they were going for, and they stuck with it. One of the things that I notice about cartoons on Cartoon Network currently is that there are a few exceptions, but a lot of them don't know how to properly execute a flow in between scenes, and a lot of the characters come off as really, really stiff because they're so heavily animated outside of their keyframes. Sorry.
Yeah, I think I noticed some of those things. I mean, I don't know anything about animation because I'm not an artist.
I'm sorry for
any means.
I'm sorry for. I will
it's good information.
Next podcast, I will try my hardest not to be that guy.
I mean, like, as long as some things get explained, because I assume some people who watch our stuff aren't animators either. So as long as you give, like, a glossary.
Yeah.
Is that the correct term? A glossary?
Glossary, sure. Hold on. I'm about to...
A footnote with, like, explanation of what everything means.
Yeah. I'll just put the entire Wikipedia page.
You don't know what animation is, click here.
Oh, can I please bring this up because it's really funny?
Sure.
It has nothing to do with Cartoon Network, but it was really funny. There's a new Dragon Ball movie coming out, and it's really well animated. But one of the things about proper animation is that, you know how character sheets work, right?
Yes.
Sure, let's go with that. But basically they simplified certain characters' models, but also kept with actually proportional figures, which is absolutely wonderful for animation, because the original style that people were going for in this series called Dragon Ball Super, they had really simplistic styles, but they had a lot of detail in their models, like a lot of unnecessary detail that they didn't need, which hindered their cheap animators' ability to actually do it properly without looking like really ugly puppets. But that aside, there was a whole Twitter fight about it, because a lot of people didn't like the new models because they're just like, these are just like, simplifications. All they did was take away the glossiness of it. All they did was take away like the improvements that people made on it. And the point that they were arguing was the art degraded, while this movie was trying to improve the animation, which was constantly mocked by the community at the time. And one of the points people were making on the side that hated the models was somebody said in response to, if you sacrifice art, then if you sacrifice the detail in the art, then the animation improves so there can be better motion. And somebody replied, animation has nothing to do with motion.
I mean, they're not wrong.
They are absolutely wrong.
Wait, what?
Let me repeat the sentence. They said animation...
Sorry, you just keep cutting out, that's why.
Damn it. Well, yeah. They said animation has nothing to do with motion. And it's...
They said animation has nothing to do with motion?
Yeah. And I'll pin the tweet for reference in the backdrop when I say it. But it's one of those sentences that couldn't be more of the contrary.
Yeah, that's really wrong.
It's like, oh my God, what is this show done to people for them to say that? But, it's one of those things where it's just one person being an asshole and trying to win an argument online. But made me think, like, could it possibly be that a lot of animators in the industry don't know the difference between animating and, like, making art, in a sense?
Wait, can I interrupt? You know what had the absolute best animation?
What?
The intro sequence to Goosebumps.
Don't even fucking talk to me.
Wait, we gotta have like a clip of the dog that has the green eye.
Those eyes always make me just like, they didn't even try. They didn't. You can clearly see them floating.
Or is it like a shadow that goes over like the billboard and then it like
Yeah.
shifts to be an angry face?
Oh yeah, I remember that. One of the things that I was watching a video on that and how people could just easily take the billboard and put other shit on it because it was that much of a, hey, we need an entirely blank whiteboard. Sorry, billboard. But that was a live action show, so I can't really be like, oh, the animation sucks. That's why it's bad.
Well, like the animation at the beginning is just pretty funny.
Yeah, it's comically bad. Oh my god, it's really funny though. It's undeniably funny. And I'm gonna come out the gates and say that I, in general, don't like Scooby-Doo just because I don't like the structure that they set up, because I personally don't enjoy it because I know what the premise is. And it's even though they can put things in between the ultimate conclusion, the conclusion is very clear. It's almost like they developed their own Shakespearean format at that point.
Yeah, I mean, that's your opinion. I just grew up with Scooby-Doo and I really like it, specifically What's New Scooby-Doo.
What's new?
I'll fight anyone in the comments and hold into that. It's the best version of Scooby-Doo. Like, it even trumps the original version.
Whoa, 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 whoa. As an avid Scooby-Doo fan, I'm gonna have to disagree.
Well, like, I mean, I'm a little biased because I was an emo kid and, like...
What does that have to do with
who wrote the theme
Scooby-Doo?
song? Simple Plan wrote the theme song to What's New Scooby-Doo.
I'm sorry.
And so,
I just
like-
had a bit in my head where Scooby just walks in on, like, Shaggy trying to hang himself. He's just like, ruh-roh.
Animate that to include in the video.
That's my next shitpost. Oh.
At this point, you should just animate this conversation.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do, because making a skit about that requires context.
Or you can just, like, animatic it.
Yeah. The fuck, I'm not doing actual animation for you fuckers. Fuck off.
No, I want you to animate it with detail. No cal arts.
Well, like, my, what you see is, like, my cartoony style isn't, like, what I usually draw, because I usually draw, like, really hyper, unnecessarily detailed stuff when it comes to, you know, all those shit of people, like, snapping each other's necks and shit. We're not going to get into that. But,
Oh.
well, my speciality is posing and expressions. I'm not too good at, like, actually, making, like, something, like, because making a painting is where I struggle. And I'm going to stop the conversation about my art style so we can get back into what we were originally talking about. But
Yeah, what was our topic again?
we were talking about how the animation, how I should stop talking about animation, first of all. And how, like, you said that, what did you say was the best animated show from the 90s era?
I don't know about from the 90s era, but, like, I think just from, like, our childhood, I think Flapjack was probably the best one. People can fight me on it. I don't really care.
All right, I'll grab my bat. I'll be over there in a few minutes.
I just thought it was nice, but there's so many shows that were well animated and so many shows that are not well animated.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I will always say. Good animation does not always define a good show. But I will be frustrated if you constantly tween everything. Like, just saying, Teen Titans Go, I'm looking at you. You might as well have made 3D models with the amount of tweening you're doing. But anyway, actually, let's talk about Teen Titans Go.
Do we have to?
No, because yes, because this is where I was gonna talk about like the style that people are nostalgic for. You're familiar with how
People are nostalgic for Teen Titans Go?
No. Here's where I'm about to diverge really quick, because you know what the aesthetic of Teen Titans Go sort of goes for, the SD sort of thing.
Yeah. The XD.
I said SD, but whatever.
Oh, I thought you said XD. Whatever.
XD. That's what I do every time I watch Teen Titans Go. Haha. To be fair, you have to have a very high IQ to understand Teen Titans Go.
Oh my god.
Okay, we're not going to talk about Rick and Morty.
Jeb Bush Go.
Okay. Yeah, but the night begins to shine, or whatever the episode's called, like 40%, 20%. Was that what it was called?
I don't remember what it was called, but like when you say night begins to shine, people know what you're talking about.
They drastically changed the art style. And
it was great.
And yes.
I loved that episode. That was like the redeeming episode for me.
Yeah. And the reason people liked it so much was not only was it better than what Teen Titans was, it was very similar to what we would have expected the successor for the original Teen Titans to be. Like, I would be more understanding if that's what the episodes of a succeeding series of Teen Titans, like a spin-off series of the original Teen Titans, to be like that. And it's heartbreaking that that's the only one that I actually, because I hadn't seen the episode when you guys had talked about it all the time. I was just like, what the fuck is so great about this episode? Like, is it like a weird musical or something? So I sat down and I watched it, and I was thoroughly impressed with the art direction and the storytelling of it. Like, I did not expect to actually enjoy it, but the reason people enjoyed it was because it wasn't really Teen Titans Go.
Yeah, it was like a weird callback to the 80s. And like, I don't know, I remembered like the battle scene at the very end not really having that much dialogue. It just focused on like the music and the fighting.
Well, yeah.
Which I liked. I thought it was great. I'm like, everyone shut up for once. Awesome.
Yeah, like, it was objectively real. Well, I won't say objectively because it was still tweened, and a lot of people hate tweening more than me, so I didn't think it was possible. But having that example established, people really enjoyed that episode. It's highest rated episode because it was so different from the actual show. When you factor that to a lot of modern cartoons where they have highest rated episodes, you notice that a lot of them are episodes that are not similar to the original show. And they break, or they do something new, something that's not what you're used to seeing. And that's where I feel a lot of producers or directors fall flat when they're making cartoons. Like, they're not doing anything to impress anybody anymore.
Right, they're just doing something to keep the show going and like keep selling toys and keep kids interested.
Yeah. That's color and noise. That's what I like to refer to it as. Because if there's no substance to it, that's literally something for you to put in front of your kid and hope they go like, oh, shiny. But now I think it would be a good time to talk about Thundercats Roar.
No, we're not talking about Thundercats Roar.
So the original Thundercats.
The original Thundercats was great.
Yeah, I'm very nostalgic for it, not only because like the voice acting was terrible, but everybody was poor back then, so they literally, in that era, like they literally got like anybody to play anyone. It was really well animated in the sense that they were really good at key animation and key art. And it was all very consistent. And that's what I really loved about the show, because all the characters, you never see them looking off or not like themselves a lot of the time. But the storytelling was also great. But like the overall tone is that you know this is from the 90s and you know that it's old. And a lot of people sometimes consider, oh, like the animation or the voice acting didn't age well. Then came the Thundercats reboot in, I think it was 2013. I personally didn't have a lot of time to watch it, so I got stuck on the filler episodes, so it left kind of a bad taste in my mouth. But a lot of people really loved it. But the thing is, it didn't get a lot of attention because it was pandering to an audience that was very rare in the Cartoon Network community. The audience that like really enjoys compelling storytelling and good voice acting, and a lot of kids just want to watch something funny or something like I said, color and noise. And that's where ratings tend to dip down, and people are just like, oh, well, if there are that many fans, then why aren't they watching the show? Also, the airing times were really conflicting. Like, they were almost random at certain points. I wasn't affected by that because let's just say I have a very big let's just say I go to Treasure Island to get my booty. But there's always
What?
I have a little pirate ship.
Oh, I was like, I thought you meant like you were getting ass. I was like, what? You get ass so you can watch Thundercats remake?
Yes. I'm honestly amazed that you picked up on that.
I'm sorry.
Did you ever see the 2013 version?
Did I ever see the what?
The 2013 version of Thundercats.
I did not see the Thundercats remake. I saw some of the original because my mom was really into it for some reason. But
Midlife crisis?
Yeah, no.
I'm kidding.
Or just
it's a good show.
Was a furry before furry was a thing? I don't know.
You know what? I hated what the... Have you seen Chitara's design for the remake from 2013? So let's compare notes really quick. I need to share this to you. So
if you're asking me for like who's the names of what Thundercats, I have no idea.
It's
been a while.
Okay. You know who Chitara is. It's in the name.
Bitch, no I don't.
The cheetah girl.
The cheetah girl?
You'll know her because I'm gonna send you 2 images. Oh, it was 2011. Never mind. So Tara, can I get like a full? Okay. So while I'm doing this, we'll talk about the difference in style from both of those cartoons with Thundercats Roar. Now, what did you initially think have you seen the opening yet?
The opening to Thundercats Roar?
Yeah.
No.
Well, it was...
I just saw, like... Well, when I first heard that it was going to be a thing, I was like, let me guess, this is going to look like Teen Titans Go or Steven Universe. And then they released the poster, and I'm like, oh, it's both.
Yeah, like...
It's so bad. Like, it's just... I hate the way that they're animated now. Like, they're all short and they're cute, and I'm like, no, that's not what the Thundercats are.
That's what...
They can kill a man or cat. Man-cat.
They can kill my cat. The most dangerous predator.
Yeah, so it's really annoying that they keep animating them like that. I just... The art style itself is not annoying. I'm not, like, critiquing...
Oh, no, it's very annoying to me.
The art style itself? Okay, well, yeah. But what's annoying about it is that they keep making a show with the same exact art style. Every fucking show on Cartoon Network looks exactly like that. And that's a problem.
Yeah.
If I turn on the TV and I can't tell which show I'm watching, that's a problem.
It also kind of looks like OKKO.
Looks like what?
OKKO. You've seen the art style for that, right?
Yes. I don't even think I watched the show just because I took one look at the art style and I was like, no, that's not going to happen.
Wasn't that fucking flattering? The minute I put Chitara 2011, the result came full body picture.
Oh.
So you can probably assume what we're heading into. Safe search is overrated.
Ho.
You know what? Fine. Since we need to compare notes...
Show me that Thundercat booty that you like, apparently.
I do not.
Because you had to go to Treasure Island to get the booty so you can watch Thundercat.
Yeah. They stuck their pined dicks down my asshole.
Just show me the picture.
Give me a sec. This is probably the most accurate depiction. It's basic.
Did you send it or not?
I'm about to. Fuck off. So here's the original Chitara design. Yes, I want to upload it. God.
Okay. I remember her. She's like the female.
Yeah.
I mean, are there other females? Yeah, right?
Yeah. And here's a new one.
Okay. Really? That's what that looked like?
Yeah. Like,
it's very different, but I wouldn't say it's bad necessarily.
well, I mainly have a problem because this is like a very she was one of those characters that didn't talk, even though like Chitara in the original Thundercats like had dialogue. Chitara's kind of like to me, when I was watching it, I don't know if she got character development later, but I felt that it was a little like, oh, cool. They gave her a midriff and that's it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's almost like they're trying to bring in the little 80s boys that jacked off to Kitara.
I mean, that's probably what their goal was. I don't know what their goal is with Thundercats Roar. They're probably like, oh, well, if we remake a show, people that are like the older crowd will love it, while we also keep the same shitty style and color and noise for the little kids.
I swear that style...
Also, we're too lazy to come up with a new idea for a show, so let's just take an old one.
I swear that the style of those shows make people look like their hips are going to destroy their spine. Like
they need to stop. They need to stop making every show look exactly the same.
Well, here's the thing about a lot of these artists is that a lot of people, for some reason, find this style appealing because it's simplistic. But I will say that I've seen the animated intro to the Thundercats Roar, and it's actually really well animated. But unfortunately, these were commissioned animators, of which I know, and I knew I recognized their animation style because they've worked on other really good shit. So that makes me a little fearful for what the actual animation style is going to be.
Yeah, we can only hope that it's going to be decent, but expect that it probably won't be.
Also, I hated Mumra's design. You know, the mummy guy?
Yes.
His new design was really weird.
Fuck! Sorry, my mic fell. I'm also so uncomfortable in this closet.
I bet.
Like, it's a small closet.
But that's not what makes me turned off by these shows. A lot of them are not very compelling, like I said. And you can agree with me on that. Like, there's not much that excites me anymore about...
Yeah, unless it's like Adult Swim or occasionally Toonami, I don't really watch Cartoon Network anymore. And most people are like, aren't you like the Cartoon Network geeks, whatever? Like, why don't you watch Cartoon Network? I'm like, just because right now nothing good is on.
Yeah, it's like...
I don't really want to watch trash.
I'm cutting this out.
Yeah, I hope you do.
All right, new metaphor. It's like... I'm leaving in the sentence, though, that I cut it out. Actually, bad example. Okay, we're cutting that again. All right, hold on.
It's like you really like video games. And they're like, no, wait, no, that doesn't work, because
No, actually,
video
here.
games right now are kind of decent.
They're pretty decent, but there was an era where it was just like, fuck this. And one of the things that a lot of developers do, like Ubisoft and EA, is that they're making video games to make money, and it's clear. Like, everything is just...
So it's like you're playing video games, and it's like, why don't you like Battlefront 2? Well, because it's not good. So,
Well...
I just don't play that right now.
Well, actually, that's a good point. Why people asking, like, why don't you like the new Call of Duty? It's because the original Call of Duty was its own game. And when we rehash the same duty over and over again, we tend to have results where it's just like, I'm playing the same game, but with different color weapons.
I mean, pretty much.
Also, I don't want women in my World War II game. Just saying. Just saying, guys. We got to keep historical accuracy, just so we can have. By the way, while you're at it, put footage of the concentration camps. That'll really get the ratings up.
We need historical accuracy
Yeah, we need.
after all.
I love the gifs of. I love the gifs of the three guys riding the horse, just like firing RPGs at enemies. Because they're all just standing on a horse running around. It's just like, okay. Although I will say that the game developers should establish what their goal is with the game, whether or not it's an actual depiction of World War II or not, because that'll confuse a lot of people. But at the same time, who fucking cares? It's a video game.
Yeah, that's fair. So.
What's our verdict on?
I think that.
So this is our in-depth discussion about Lele Pons.
Oh my god. Well, I think we've said enough for a good introductory podcast. We're going to try to upload these weekly, but considering that we all have really busy lives, that
we have lives in general.
Yeah, and they conflict a lot. It might not be every single week at the same day and time, but we're going to keep shooting for making stuff that's weekly.
I'm still tied.
So,
I'm still chained to a wall. That's the only reason I'm doing this.
Yeah, he's our animation slave. The animation that you're watching right now was provided by our slave.
What? Excuse me. Oh, that's what you're talking about. Oh. Thanks, future me. Make sure not to chafe your wrists with that carpal tunnel.
Get back to work.
I'm sorry. I don't want to live here anymore. I've been living in this $10,000 mansion with UNC and G.
What?
And they keep me in the basement. They feed me copies of Braveheart for some reason.
Less talky, more dry.
I don't know,
that hurt my own ears. This has been the Cartoon Network Geeks Chat Room Network.
Well, we will see you guys later. This was our first attempt at it, and we just crushed it, clearly.